Welcome back to another Porsche car whisper video. If this is your first time checking out my channel, my name is Mason Gilchrist, and I cover everything Porsche. And I cannot believe it because right now I have two iconic Porsches. We have the 911 ST and 992 GT3 RS. It's going to be unlike any other videos that you've seen regarding these two cars. It's not so much of a versus, as these cars have completely different applications. We're going to be talking about, I had to choose a one-car solution between both of these. What would it be? But first, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the history of these cars at Porsche. So let's go ahead and get into it.
So in typical fashion of my channel, I always like to talk about the history of the cars before we kind of dive a little bit deeper into them. Where did the 911 ST come from? Well, back in the late 1960s, after the introduction of the 911R in 1967, Porsche decided, you know what, we want to make a lighter version of the 911S. So they virtually combined the 911S and the 911T, had a lot lighter fenders, and overall was just a lot lighter car that they were going to take racing. And it went to a lot of very famous races back in the late 1960s into the early 1970s. So that's pretty much where the 911 ST originated, and that's why they ended up bringing it back. First was the 911R, then the ST. They did the same thing with 991.1. Then they brought the 911 ST again here for model year 2023, as it was initially launched at Rennsport Reunion. Now, this particular car is very special, and it's spec'd the way I believe a 911 ST should be, as it is in the shore blue metallic, which is going to be the launch color, with the classic cognac interior, which is a very nice heritage look. So let's just take a look at a couple of my favorite highlights on this car. We have the Ceramica wheels. You can see there's a really cool sheen to those wheels. And here, as part of all the heritage cars, we're going to have that heritage Porsche crest, which is going to throw us back right into the 1970s. No black there on the Porsche. Got a little bit more of an orange. Now you're going to notice all of this on the wheels, the center caps, the front, which is actually going to be the heritage badging as well. Now you're going to notice, opposed to the GT3 RS, this is an actual badge. Same thing is going to be there on the steering wheel. Now you're going to notice this big circle. You could option this car with start numbers 0 to 99. Part of it was because the car was a race car. So Porsche is still doing it here in the 992.1. As part of the 60-year anniversary, we do have 1963 to 2023 when the car was originally launched. Have a nice little gurney flap here, very reminiscent of some of those older 911 race cars. As part of the heritage, we're going to have Porsche in gold, as well as the 911 ST. And one of my favorite features is this double bubble. If you ever see a double bubble there on the roof, that means it's typically a pretty special car, and this car is no different. Now, as we come here to the front, this owner put the LED matrix headlights, which to me is important. And then as we kind of come in here to the inside, you're going to notice there's a lot more leather on the inside, because this car is more of a touring car opposed to a GT3 RS. We have these Porsche crests, which are going to be that heritage aspect. We have the leather here on the inside. It's part of the door sill. It's going to show 911 ST. Now, in terms of the power plant of this car, it has a flat 6, and it's going to be 4 liters, just about 520 horsepower. And this car has what makes very special the 911R. Same thing here on the 911 ST, which is a single mass 6-speed manual transmission. So the power plant in this car is going to be the same as the GT3 RS, but this car does not have rear axle steering, and it's pretty crazy the difference on how these two will drive, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we hop behind both the wheels of this car. Pass-throughs are going to be in shore blue, which was done after the fact, but I think is a very nice touch. I always love to mix the inside of the car to the outside and vice versa, and this car does that perfectly. Now, in terms of the exhaust, it is going to be an aftermarket exhaust, and I haven't heard too many 911 STs. There's just only 1,963 of them floating around, but the sound sounds absolutely incredible, which you guys will get a chance to hear that after we take them both for a spin. But now let's go ahead and go right over here to the GT3 RS and just talk a little bit about some of the differences. And what partially makes this car so special is this is no ordinary GT3 RS. This car is in paint to sample and a tremendous amount of Sonderwunsch options. So of course it's going to be in Gulf blue. We've got these wheels in white. This is some very exclusive Sonderwunsch options. Of course, we have the PCCBs there in black. The center cap is going to be in Gulf blue. That is a one-off. That's part of what Sonderwunsch does, is a lot of one-off things on these cars. Of course, we got the white decals. There's a really cool Sonderwunsch decal here on the rear quarter window. This, of course, is going to be all for aerodynamics. This car is all about track. It has a tremendous amount of downforce. At about 180 miles an hour, we almost have 2,000 pounds of downforce here on this wing. So it's incredible what they've done in terms of this car compared to the last generation, how much larger the wing is. Of course, including that DRS system. I love it. Now, as we come here to the back and the sides, this is another Sonderwunsch option, how it's painted in body color. You don't see that very often. Something very special about this car is it has an Akrapovic header back. This car literally sounds like a race car. It should be an RSR for the street. So it's absolutely incredible what he's done with this car. And as we come into the inside, you can see that door sill says Sonderwunsch, which means special wishes. We have the interior, which is going to be in pebble gray. And you can see the seat inserts with that piping, which is very reminiscent of the 918 Spider. Those pass-throughs are also going to be in Gulf blue. We've got a roll cage, Gulf blue. He did an incredible job speccing this car. Of course, we have all this very nice stitching. We have the steering column casing is going to be in leather. Sonderwunsch right there in the center. I'm going to put all the Sonderwunsch options on this car, and I'm going to highlight them, maybe not quite as part of all this video. There's just too many to note, but I don't want one of the options to go missed. So in terms of the RS, let's briefly talk a little bit about the history before we take both of the cars and decide what that one car solution is going to be. RS stands for Rennsport, or racing sport, as if you were to translate it into English, and this dates back pretty much all the way back to 1973 with the introduction of the 2.7 RS, a iconic Porsche model. There was a touring model of that car as well as a sport. They only made about 200 cars of the sport model, just around 1,500 total cars, so incredible. And Porsche is still bringing it today. That was a race car that you could still put on the street. We're doing the same thing today. Porsche initially brought back the GT3 RS as part of the 996, which actually never came to the United States and was only in Europe. They brought it back again in the 997.1 and 0.2, which ended up being a 4-liter, that super special car, short shifter, incredible. Only made about 600 of those. Then we've had several different generations. As Chris Harris talks about it, we had Mr. Purple. Then we had a lizard green car, which ended up coming out in 2018 as a 2019. And now we have 992.1 GT3 RS, an absolute track toy. So I can't wait to drive both of these and see what is going to be my one-car solution. I have a feeling they're going to be drastically different, as of course this car has the same exact power plant as the 911 ST, but its character and its soul is way different than the 911 ST. So let's first start off. I'm going to get with Mike. If you guys haven't checked out his channel, it's going to be Mike Rusnak down below. We also do a podcast together, Mike and Mason's P-Car podcast. We're going to hop behind the 911 ST first, see what we think. Go back to back with the GT3 RS, and then we're going to talk about that one-car solution. So let's go ahead and get into it.
So I already did a little bit of a short drive earlier in this car, and I can tell that this car is incredibly special. Of course, any limited number car is always very special from Porsche. This is kind of the second generation of the 911R in a way. This is kind of the next level 992.1 car. So this car has an aftermarket exhaust before we even get going. This is not a stock 911 ST. Has an exhaust called the Benjamin Klaus Inconel Performance exhaust. And let me tell you, sounds incredible just sitting here. And if the car's in neutral, you can really hear that single mass flywheel. Yeah. I love that about the 911 ST, but also the 911R. So let's just take it for a quick spin. Kind of just get my initial thoughts as well as Mike's initial thoughts. Auto blip is on, as well as the sport exhaust is on as well. So let's just take it again for a little cruise. Now this car has just over 600 miles on it, so we have to keep the RPMs down below 6,000, as that's part of the break-in period from Porsche. And wow, I can tell you that this car revs incredibly fast. It's nuts.
It just drops as soon as you release it.
It drops so fast. I know there's quite a few videos out there where people talk about how quickly the revs drop, even before you have the chance to shift. And I can certainly feel that. That's all going to be because of that single mass flywheel. Now we're just going to be talking just for a couple minutes what our thoughts are of the car, as there's plenty of other videos out there talking about all the specifics of the 911 ST. So we figured we would do just a little bit of a different type of video, just kind of sharing our thoughts. I can tell you already that this car is a canyon carver, and you feel very, very connected to the road, and it sounds incredible. So let me just do a little pull here for you guys so you can feel it. Wow. That's fourth gear at about 4,000 RPMs.
I can't get over how fast this revs drop.
I know.
It's like you're going from 5,500 to 2,500 in between those shifts.
Exactly. Just boom, 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 boom. It is crazy how fast it is. If you're not heel towing, you definitely need that auto blip on to help keep the revs up, because it just drops so incredibly fast. Now this car has the Heritage exterior, which we talked about just a couple moments ago. And this is number 1495, 1963. And that's going to be because that's the first year of the Porsche 911. And this is a 60th anniversary model. There's a badge there on the back of the car that is paying respect to the very first Porsche 911. For the 911R, there was less than 1,000, only 991, which is crazy, even less. But I've driven a couple 911Rs, and this feels definitely like the next level 911R, especially with this 992.1 generation car.
Every time you get off the gas, you hear the transition.
Yeah, you can.
I remember when you let me drive that R, how I thought it was something was wrong when I remember that. I was at the stoplight. I was like, what did I do?
There's something going on with this car. But I love the manual transmission aspect. I'll tell you that. Let me give it just a little bit of a pull here on this road so you can feel it. Wow. I can't imagine this car at 9,000 RPMs. All these acoustics. And we're still keeping it, of course, below that 6,000 marker. I'm a big proponent of old school cars just because of how raw they feel, and I can tell you, without the rear axle steering on this car, it certainly makes the car feel quite a bit more raw, especially as you're taking those corners and bends. You just feel so connected. As good as the rear axle steering is, I feel like it may take away a little bit of the overall rawness of these cars. So I'm actually glad that Porsche got rid of the rear axle steering on this car. And actually talking about the old school cars, as I look down here and see this Heritage interior, which I think is the perfect way to build this car, you can see that nice green tack, as well as that chrono clock up there in the dash. It just reminds you, it kind of gives you a throwback to the past, which is what I really, really like. How Porsche always is able to tie in the old cars with the new cars, and this is a perfect example of that. But so far to me, this car is perfect. It's the perfect car.
I almost wish it was the Silval Eagle.
Yeah, I know.
This is something you'd want to drive every day.
Yes.
But the limited edition and part of it, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of guys that just don't want to put miles on them.
Yep, I'm with you. So I am very grateful to the owner for allowing us to drive his 911 ST as well as his GT3 RS. Being able to go back and back to back is incredible, and almost a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, to be honest with you.
Think of how many people will be able to drive one of these cars on the planet.
Yes, there's not going to be very many that will ever drive a 911 ST, and we are lucky enough to be sitting in it. So, again, I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity. Right now, my heart is with this 911 ST. We'll see if things change as we drive that GT3 RS. Of course, like I said, almost the exact same engine virtually, but this transmission is a pretty big aspect that's going to be different. Of course, that car has incredible downforce, rear axle steering. This car's kind of more low-key. If you're not a Porsche lover or Porsche obsessed, you're gonna be like, man, that looks like a cool 911, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. So that's kind of what I really, really like about this car too. It's just very, very understated.
Yeah.
Even
Unless you know.
Actually, no, because of the sound. Unless you know, you don't know.
Yeah, people just think it's another 911.
It's just a regular 911 driving down the street. So I really, really like that part about this car, just kind of how understated it is. So now let's go ahead and hop behind the GT3 RS, and then we're gonna pick a winner between both cars in what I think is the perfect car overall. Of course, they're very, very, very different cars, but what I would choose if I had to go between the two. So stay tuned for my thoughts on which one, ST or RS. So now that we got out of the ST, it's time to hop in the GT3 RS and just do a quick comparison drive. Again, these cars are a lot different in their personalities, but just want to see how this one does as well. So this one has a acro, headers all the way back. So I'm going to open up the valves. And of course, this car is PDK, not manual. Woo. Already I can tell how direct the steering is on the GT3 RS. Everything is at this point set into normal. I'll put it into sport. It's even shaking the camera a little bit. I can see that. It sounds like an RSR. And then you've also got, a lot of people talk about this in their videos, the clicky paddle shifters, the magnetic paddle shifters.
I can't wait till that standard equipment. Oh,
Yeah, I know.
Just,
It's incredible.
Chef's kiss.
It is chef's kiss. I could already tell how much stiffer this car is, and that this car is 100% track focused, and not as much as I said in my last one, as much as a Canyon Carver, even though that car is so much more than that. Now this has the same power plant as the 911 ST, but the character of this car is drastically different. And that sound, the car is literally an RSR for the street. It's insane, the sound. I'll give this guy a little bit of space. That's about 6,000. Wow! The downshifts. This car is 100% next level. Now we already talked about what makes this car special, because this car has a lot of really special items in it. We talked mostly about the outside, but you can tell that the car, just from the inside, we've got this 918 piping. Of course, it is the Visoc package. So we've got that fully exposed carbon roof, as well as the hood, side mirrors. We have the white wheels, and that center cap, like we talked about earlier, is going to be in that Gulf blue. So this is a very, very special car. We also have that cage that's going to be Gulf blue that he added after the fact. I can tell you, I can really feel the rear axle steering on this car as well. It's more of just a point and shoot. Literally just barely move the steering wheel, and you're going like this. It's nuts how responsive this car is. So you can definitely feel the suspension changes between this RS and that ST. Because the ST is kind of a mix of this car and a GT3 Touring, so I can certainly feel the differences. But as I'm just looking over the fenders, those scoops there, the fenders, are insane. It's pretty crazy, but this is a very, very special car. Not only because of the GT3 RS, but because of all those Sonderwunsch options that he has, and then of course that Akrapovic exhaust. It's mind-bending, that sound. Again, like I said, it's an RSR for the street. Wow. make them any better for us mere mortals that aren't obviously race car drivers. I must say, the GT3 RS is absolutely incredible, and so is the 911 ST. But if I was to pick a one-car solution, I'd probably end up going with the ST. Not only because it's a limited number car, but I love overall how you feel when you're driving it. You feel just so connected with that single mass flywheel, that flat six right behind you, those lighter glass there in the back, which is going to be the rear quarter windows in the very far back. So as much as I love the GT3 RS, it's an absolute track weapon. My one car solution is going to be the 911 ST. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions, of course, you can always put them down in the comments below. If you have any questions about either of these cars, put it down in the comments. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to hit the like and subscribe button down below, we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.